In a time with so much uncertainty, there are two things that we all know for sure. Number one is that we will travel again. And number two is that it will look nothing like the way we traveled pre-pandemic. In today's video, I'll be sharing my predictions on what we expect travel to look like over the next 3 to 5 years. This is something that's very important to think about because it may be influencing some of the decisions you make now, such as postponing a destination wedding or canceling it altogether, or continuing to plan a gap year full of travel versus putting that money towards an apartment instead. The predictions in this video are based on research, but keep in mind that no one knows what the future holds, especially in a time like this where things can change in a given moment. Let's kick things off with airline ticket prices. I anticipate that over the next year, as we go into 2021, we will see prices that are comparable to pre-pandemic as airlines are trying to win back the trust of travelers. However, after that, as we look at the next 3 to 5 years, I expect ticket prices to rise significantly, making air travel once again a privilege. Airlines need to make up for the massive losses that they experienced over 2020 and will also be likely flying with lower capacity and empty middle seats. Health and safety measures like fancy air filters, deep cleaning supplies, and the additional staff that will need to be hired to clean are all extra costs for the airlines. Many conferences and business meetings have now gone online, and a large portion of them will likely stay online as we move into the future. This means a loss of the thousands and thousands of dollars that airlines could make off selling a single ticket in first class or business class. I could go on and on about the factors that could influence a significant price increase in airline ticket costs, but I'll leave you with this. The cheap airline ticket prices that we've seen leading up to 2020 were based on volume, i.e. cramming as many people as possible onto an airplane, landing at the destination, getting them off as quickly as possible, and then reboarding another group of people to fill the plane, all within 1 hour. The quick turnover and the full capacity of these airplanes are two things that are no longer possible with social distancing and the deep cleaning regulations that will be in place. My next prediction is a little more obvious and already happening. I think we will see a continued increase in domestic tourism, particularly in the form of land travel and road trips as well as camping. Many destinations that have been tourist hotspots for international tourists have ended up being overcrowded and overrun, meaning that the locals in the area don't even want to go and participate in those activities or see the big landmarks. This is an opportunity to explore within your own country without the crowds of international tourists. I also see governments continuing to give incentives for domestic tourism, as in discounts if you're a local to view the attraction or stay in certain hotels or locations. Travelers may also be more inclined to support and grow their own economy by choosing to travel domestically as opposed to traveling abroad. Another shift that I expect to see is who international travel is available to. Traditionally, based on having certain passports, you are able to travel to more countries around the world more freely and obtain tourist or work visas with greater ease. So for example, as a Canadian, I've had the privilege to be welcomed to most countries around the world without having to worry about restrictions based on my citizenship. However, moving forward, this could change in a moment's notice, with where you're allowed to travel being based on how your home country or the country in your passport is handling the pandemic. A prime example of this is with the United States. Americans are not allowed to travel to many countries despite those countries having opened their borders up to international tourism. This is because right now the USA is considered a high-risk country in regards to COVID, and therefore these countries do not want Americans traveling to their country because the risk of them spreading COVID is greater than, say, someone coming from New Zealand. So while based on your home country, you may have been able to travel freely in the past, I now think your travel freedom is going to be based on how well or how poorly your home country is handling the pandemic. I also anticipate that we will see a shift in the age of the travelers who are going international over the next 3 to 5 years. Boomers and retirees that have both money and time were active travelers pre-pandemic. but I don't necessarily see them being so keen on international travel over the next 3 to 5 years. One reason being that they aren't necessarily comfortable with travel. They've potentially been working and are recently retired and therefore have not been continuously traveling over the last few years, meaning they're not used to it. And now it's like not only a new thing for them, but you also have all of these new restrictions and regulations on top of any existing fear of getting started with travel. So instead of starting to travel now that they're retired as originally planned, they may want to put that money towards other things, like the purchase of a cottage that they can go back to over and over again, something that is familiar, known, and within their home country. I also anticipate that governments will be more strict about international travelers having travel insurance when they arrive in the country. This could also deter older citizens, given that many travel insurances do not cover COVID, and the ones that do are going to be more expensive. Also, most travel insurances become more expensive the older you are, so now you're paying for COVID coverage and a premium based on your age. It's also been rumored with the cruise industry that travelers may have to present a certificate that shows they are medically fit to travel, whatever that means. And I wouldn't be surprised if governments of certain countries are asking for the same type of certificate before allowing international travelers into their country. This leads to just one more hoop that a senior traveler is going to have to jump through to be able to travel internationally. So while boomers, retirees, and seniors may not be so keen to go back to international travel or to start international travel, I do predict that younger travelers, those millennials and Gen Z, which would be people born in the mid-90s like myself, will be the first to start traveling once again. These are the people that were comfortable with travel before, whether it was long-term or just for a vacation. I also predict that we will see an increase in digital nomadism, but it will be different from the way it has been over the past few years, potentially for the better. Gen Z will be entering the workforce as a remote employee or as an online freelancer. They will become accustomed to having the freedom to work from anywhere while continuing to earn money, having the funds to travel and choose where they work from without having to give up on their salary. Assuming we have a widely available vaccine come 2025 as predicted, I see digital nomadism increasing from the levels that we saw in 2019. I also think it will be better. I think we'll see less people that end up quitting their jobs, selling all their things, and moving to Thailand with this dream of becoming a digital nomad, but no way to actually support themselves. I instead anticipate a future with more financially stable remote workers that understand the nature of remote work and choose to do so from places they love staying in for several months at a time. Maybe even bringing their families and taking advantage of online schooling opportunities. This will be more beneficial to the people that are doing it themselves, as well as to the countries that they're going to, because they'll be less of a burden and more likely to actually be contributing to that country's economy by bringing in foreign income. I also see fewer people that are trying to start their own business while living this lifestyle, and instead working for an employer earning a stable paycheck. My next prediction is that we will continue to see a rise in slow travel. Gone are the days of flying into Europe on a one-way or into Asia with a backpack and just absolutely winging your trip. There are many reasons for this, with flying being more expensive and also perceived as a more risky option when it comes to getting sick. More people will stay in one place for longer periods of time and then maybe exploring around that area by more human-powered travel, such as on foot or on a bicycle, as opposed to getting on public transport or taking a flight. Many countries continue to insist that international travelers isolate for 2 weeks on arrival, so if this continues, it will of course influence the trend towards slow travel. Last week I explained about the Barbados Welcome Stamp, which is a new government initiative to spike tourism in Barbados by allowing people to live and work in the country for up to 1 year. I anticipate that governments will be keeping a close eye on how this works for Barbados, and if it is successful, I can see them implementing a similar visa that's going to encourage people to stay in the country for longer periods of time. I can see more and more of these type of work and travel visas coming out from different governments, given that it means the traveler is living and spending money in that country while continuing to earn money from abroad. This means that they are growing the local economy with foreign income while not taking away any jobs from the locals. If anything, these type of travelers will be adding job opportunities for the locals. Experiential travel has been on the rise for the past few years. This looks like going to homestays and staying with a local family, or taking part in a local cooking class. I anticipate that this type of experiential travel is going to significantly decrease, and instead we'll see more people that are exploring independently, focusing on the historical and the natural landmarks. It's definitely unfortunate to think about the fact that international travelers are going to be less connected to the local culture and have a much more superficial understanding of the country that they are visiting. Just the act of wearing a mask, which we will all be wearing, is going to deter the spontaneous and natural conversations that you may have while traveling with a hotel staff or a server at a restaurant. There will likely also be some fear from the locals in the country towards international visitors. I completely understand this. If you see someone that is traveling to your country from outside of your country, they are at a greater risk of having been exposed to COVID, and therefore you will likely want to avoid them. There may even be hostility towards international travelers from locals in countries that were hardest hit by the pandemic and ended up facing tremendous loss in terms of lives as well as freedom. One positive is that I do see travelers being more respectful, seeing sights and moving along to allow others to experience it, and not taking inappropriate photos or feeling the need to touch anything. This more reserved way of traveling may end up better preserving historical landscapes and even leading to things like cleaner beaches and well-maintained parks and hiking trails. While I'm not too optimistic about travel over the next 3 to 5 years, travel does have a future, and it's not all doom and gloom. The next decade will likely bring major environmental recovery, and then tech and automation advancements that make everything we try to do faster and more efficient, as well as new transportation options like high-speed trains that will eventually bring those airline prices back down. So what do you think travel will look like over the next 3 to 5 years? I would love to know what your predictions are in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really supports the channel, and I hope to catch you back here again for another video next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.